Okay, so somebody want to clue me in on when exactly Dave Polsky became amazing? The Cutie Mark Crusaders are killing it this season. Scootaloo brought some serious conflict and all the feels in Flight to the Finish. Apple Bloom brought a fun, if not mind-blowing romp that brought MLP's signature blend of slice of life and fantasy and Some Pony to Watch Over Me. And now, Sweetie Belle knocks it out of the park here. For whom the Sweetie Belle Toll starts off on all cylinders with one of the best conflict setups of this entire show. It's not just a quick exposition dump then goes on its way. This episode dedicates a solid amount of time to building up Sweetie's rage and painting the crux of her contention clearly, and showing that even though she's in the wrong, you can understand where she's coming from. Having Sweetie be envious of her older sister is just such a believable conflict, with Rarity having been portrayed throughout the series as a physically beautiful, business-savvy, fashion-forward socialite on the cusp of accomplishing her dreams, not to mention she's an element of harmony and a, possibly, nationally renowned hero. And then on the other side of the equation, there's Sweetie Belle, the ho-hum younger sibling still trying to just find her place. How could anyone be expected to be content living in the shadow of such accomplishment? Nothing about these feelings on Sweetie's part feel forced for the sake of the conflict in this episode. In fact, one has to wonder why we haven't tackled an issue like this before, and how Sweetie hasn't been shown like this earlier in the series. You can tell it isn't even just an isolated incident, but years of pent-up feelings of inferiority coming to a head here, even without the callback to Sweetie's 5th birthday party. When an episode makes a character almost feel out of character in episodes prior, you know you've stumbled upon a believable conflict and are leveraging your cast effectively. I also love how this episode gives us another glimpse at Rarity and how Sweetie, and by extension others as well, can perceive her. Rarity is generous and always tries to please people, but this mentality of going so far out of her way to make others happy, combined with her competent skill set, can be perceived by others as a desire to steal people's attention and focus it solely on her. And to a degree, I'm sure this is probably true. We know by now that Rarity's biggest fault is her vanity, so she obviously loves being praised and recognized for her talents. Even in this episode, she goes way above the call of duty to make Sweetie Belle's dresses way better than they had any right to, since she has standards that she won't budge on. And she even makes sure to mention to a group of young fillies that the party favors that they were all obsessing over was something she made. Completely irrelevant information, unless one wants a subtle boost to their ego, and Rarity has no shortage of ego. However, in her mind, this is never an attempt to steal the spotlight, rather to share it. When push comes to shove, she's quick to put Sweetie back in her friend's favor. This delicate balancing act of Rarity's opposing desires is by far the most interesting thing about her character, and to once again leverage it and use it effectively in this episode was awesome. The animation in this episode was great as well, especially during Sweetie's dream sequence, particularly the transitions from scene to scene. They were smooth and really inventive, never resorting to a traditional cut, instead transitioning by twisting and distorting the environments. The vision of the future was actually pretty gritty considering a show about candy-colored horses, with some relatively disturbing imagery, like, Sweetie, you got some changeling there on your hoof. You might want to get that looked at. Luna brings out the tough love on Sweetie Belle here, and it was really tough, to the point where she seemed to be employing quite a bit of baseless conjecture and hyperbole, taking Sweetie's actions and dialing up their possible repercussions to 11, although if suited for success is any indication, this may not be all that far off. However, Luna makes the connection with these feelings of inadequacy being the same as what started her down the path of becoming Nightmare Moon, so in that regard it's understandable that she takes such a mindset in Sweetie so seriously, not to mention that this projection of past and future events is a new interpretation of Luna's dreamwalking abilities, so it was hard to know where Sweetie's own fears ended and Luna's projection begins. And this brings us to Dave's handling of Luna. While we don't exactly learn anything new about her in this episode, the fact that she's such a humanized character and how twice now she's interacted with the younger members of our cast to prevent the next generation from repeating her mistakes is just really compelling to me. Just like she could relate to Scootaloo's reluctance to face her own fears, here, Luna empathizes with Sweetie's feelings of envy, as the same emotion in her towards Celestia is what planted the seed for her transformation into Nightmare Moon. Similarly great was how Luna didn't really tell Sweetie Belle that she was doing something wrong. Just like in Sleepless in Ponyville with Scootaloo, and arguably to an even better extent here, Luna presents Sweetie with enough information to have her put the pieces together herself, and merely guides her along the way so Sweetie can see the error of her ways herself, which makes the realization that much more potent. My only minor, and I do mean minor, point of contention would be, where did Luna get her omniscient powers to be able to view all these scenarios from Rarity's perspective? Wasn't Luna trapped in the moon during Sweetie's 5th birthday? I mean, she's diving into other ponies' dreams and conversing with them, so there really isn't much ground to be standing on here in the first place in terms of coherence or logic. And Rarity is technically also asleep at the moment, so maybe she's pulling from there? Not to mention that there were dolphins as well, so maybe Luna was pulling from Sapphire Shores as well during this scene? Is this like just one massive interconnected dreamscape? What even gives Luna the right to arbitrarily invade Pony's dreams in the first place for information relevant to the plot? Is she the equestrian equivalent to the NSA or something? Nah, whatever. Other random observations. You would have thought she would have learned her lesson the last time. Hoof clapping makes hand clapping noises. Why are all these other ponies here? Was this a school function, or? How does Sweetie Belle know where the hidden stitch is? No, sweetie, that's blood orange. Doesn't Sweetie Belle live with her parents still? Love for show tunes equals cutie mark foreshadowing? Sudden Luna voice change.
Actually, no. This is very much real.
The final line of this episode made me feel things. Lots of things. Overall, though, For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils is a fantastic addition to Season 4. A great study of Sweetie Belle, her self-perceptions, and her view of her sister, and provides us with more evidence as to why Luna is best princess. While it just misses the moral resonance in my book that Flight to the Finish carried, there's little arguing that the overall structure and pacing of this episode, especially in the first act, was considerably better. Sweetie's first true outing in Season 4 just barely trails behind Scootaloo's in my personal rankings of the best Season 4 has to offer. Now I have a question for you. Since we've had an episode with Princess Luna providing guidance to both Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle, do you think we should get an episode with Luna and Apple Bloom in Season 5? If so, how would you set up the premise? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have a question for me, I'll be doing a Q&A on this episode in the next few days, so feel free to leave me a question in the Tumblr link below in the description under the like button. Until next time, I'm Tommy Oliver. Stay curious.
Though it don't matter cause you understand. Sometimes I think that I am overwhelmed by the vastness of my realm. Reaching up, the sun splits in 5.